recognizes that song?
Is that Sound of Music?
That is not the Sound of Music. Who knows?
Mary Poppins.
It is Mary Poppins. And who is that singing?
Julie Andrews. Julie Andrews.
And Julie Andrews. We all knew that, didn't we? So that message is really what I am sending today. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. You know, the little honeybees, we didn't get to that part of the song, but they have a little nectar while they're doing their work. You know, they sweeten the job. The little birds, they feathered their nest. They have a song while they do their work to help things move along. By the way, Molly Wood, welcome to the training room. We introduced ourselves before you got here. So everybody say hi to Molly.
Hi.
Okay, so happy to have you here. So today we're talking about creating a positive environment for win-win negotiations. And let me tell you how this came about. Just a few weeks ago, Janice and I were in a kind of fairly tense negotiations with a deal. It looked like everybody was just so frustrated that they were just going to back out. And as we kind of reviewed the communication, I just made the offhand comment, let's just put some sugar with it. We've been communicating facts and figures back and forward. Let's just see if we can't ramp up the personal dimension, provide some additional explanation, stroke people a little bit, and see if we can put the deal back together. Ever since we had that conversation, I've not been able to get that phrase out of my mind. And it led me to think that we really need to talk about how to create an environment where deals are more likely to get done. And so that's where this class came from. I have to tell you, I'm not just relying on my own experience. I did order a few books on negotiation, and I have looked at every one of them, most of them every page. Some of them I already had because I've always been a student of persuasion and negotiation. But this is the library that I have been going through for the last 2 weeks. Every one of these is on negotiation. By the way, the best of these is Verbal Judo. Anybody ever seen this book? It's actually written by a police officer, and it's techniques that police officers can use on the street to diffuse tension. So that you don't really have to get into an altercation. What?
I said not physically judo then.
Yeah, no.
Like you're not going to do a judo throw here.
Right. Well, the whole idea of judo is it's gentle persuasion. You know, it's avoiding conflict. It's using the aggressor's momentum to deflect and not have to get into an altercation. So, if you're interested in going deep on this subject, that's a book that I would absolutely recommend. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if it shows up on our training calendar here sometime in the next couple of months, because I think it's got a lot of great stuff. Let me kind of set the tone for why I think this is really critically important today. I taught this class yesterday in Kingwood, and the broker, Buddy Wall, sat through the whole class, and at the end of it, he stood up and said, if the agents in this office would practice the principles taught in this class, 90% of the issues that he has to deal with as a broker would go away. In terms of agent complaints, TREC complaints, and actual lawsuits. That's how important he felt this was. And he went on to explain that typically it's agents not managing the process well, not managing their clients well, not managing the relationship with the cooperating agent that causes things to go south and people to get confrontational with each other. So when we finish today, remind me if I forget, I'm going to tell you a real life example that I am involved in right now where this has come into play in a very positive way. I'll give you an example of how it's working for me right now. Okay? So putting some sugar with it. Creating a positive environment for win-win negotiations. If we're going to talk about negotiating, we should probably pause and say, well, what is the goal of negotiation? What are we trying to accomplish? And I have actually spent some sleepless nights, not complete nights, but minutes and hours, perhaps, rolling over this question in my mind. And here's the best thing I can come up with. The goal of negotiations is to obtain the best possible deal for our clients. The best possible deal. And sometimes that might be paying over market or over list, or perhaps settling for things less than what they wanted. But if it's the best possible deal, that they can get that satisfies their needs, that should be our goal. And it is our skill as negotiators which will determine whether or not we can meet that goal, whether or not we can serve them at the highest level to get them the best deal. So first things first, I want to just lay down kind of some general principles that you could walk away without the nuts and bolts of the class today. If you just internalize these principles, you're going to be a highly effective negotiator. So first of all, project confidence and competence to all parties at all times. How many of y'all are new licensees? We got a couple right on the front row. That's where you belong. That's fantastic, okay? So new licensees in particular are prone to go into a negotiation or a transaction, particularly with a highly experienced agent on the other side, and be a little timid. Oh, okay, be patient with me. This is my first transaction. I know neither of you would ever do that, but I'm exaggerating just a little bit, okay? Or you're timid, or you're asking for advice from the other side about how do I write this, or what do I put in that blank? And I want to say, please never, never do that. Don't ever do that. Project competence and confidence at all times if you want people to respect you. If you don't know the answer, then instead of in front of your client or in front of the cooperating agent, acting like you are incompetent or not confident, simply say, fantastic, let me get back with you on that. And then you go ask me, or you ask Raul, or you find another agent in the office to ask, okay? If you're not confident, then fake it till you make it. Put that big smile on your face, right? We all do a first transaction for the first time. We all go through it. So from day one, you need to carry yourself like a professional. By the way, if you have your real estate license, you already know 10 times as much about real estate as the person on the street. So there's no reason for you to feel inadequate. You are already in a position of expertise, and then you have access to so much expertise around you, okay? So always project confidence and competence, and you will forestall so many of the issues that might pop up if somebody doubts your competence. Secondly, maintain an upbeat attitude and a positive perspective at all times. And I stress that because we get into some yucky situations, don't we? And sometimes people are rude and demeaning to us. Sometimes our own clients insult us. Sometimes the cooperating agent thinks they're the big kahuna. They've been in this market for 30 years. They own this place, and that the rest of us in the market should bow down to them. Okay? Very difficult situations where we want to put up the dukes and slug it out and give it back as good as we got it. And I want to say, don't go there. It won't serve you. It will not serve your clients well. You always want to be positive and upbeat. And if the deal comes back, you know the response was not what you were wanting, and you find that you're representing the buyer and the seller and the seller's agent are not being cooperative, they're not being reasonable, they're not being realistic, you're not going to go back to your client and say that. You're going to say, you know what? We're in process here. We haven't gotten to the goal yet, but we're making progress inch by inch. Okay, you're always going to be that shield. Do you realize that virtually no homes would ever be sold if buyers and sellers had to deal with each other directly? The emotions get too high. People get cattywampus with each other. They always project their worst fears on the other party. We are the professional shield that keeps them apart and filters the information going back and forth to keep it positive. So you have to watch your own attitude. Your clients, even though they bring their own baggage to the transaction, they will take their emotional cues from you. They may be frustrated at some point, and if you show frustration, it's going to multiply their level of frustration. But if they bring frustration and you're calm and positive and upbeat, they're going to think, oh, well, Alana's done this before. I guess maybe she knows. Maybe it's not the end. Maybe they're not being completely unreasonable. Okay? If you get angry and your clients see it, they're going to get angry. So never ever criticize the buyer or the seller on the other side. Never ever criticize or show frustration or anger with the cooperating agent, even if you feel it, even if it's justified. Never ever let that show, okay? If you freak out, they will. If you get angry, they will. Be the calm in the midst of the storm, okay? We have to be bigger than that. And if it helps, think about the police officer on the street, right? People aren't always nice to them, right? But if a police officer freaks out, we're in big trouble, aren't we? We don't want them doing that. Even if people are throwing eggs at them and calling them names, we expect the police officer to be what? Calm and professional. Calm and professional. They have to maintain and make subservient their own emotions. And that's exactly what we have to do to get a real estate transaction all the way to closing. So be upbeat and positive at all times. Find the positive, find the silver lining, and put the emphasis there. And then finally, and this may be the most important thing I say all day, please get this. Make the other agent your ally, not your adversary. If you want to stay out of court, make them your ally. If you want to stay out of TREC complaint proceedings, make them your ally. And you have the opportunity to do that. I don't know why these iPhones, they just, even when I turn it off, it keeps making noise. I'm going to put it in my pocket. Okay, so here's how you help yourself. Keep in mind, you both want the same thing, right? You both want to get to the closing table. You want to get paid. Yes, we want to help people, but right, this is their career choice that we've chosen to fund our life. We're not going to get to the closing table if we make enemies of everybody in the transaction. Your clients both want the same thing. And they have sometimes a difficult time keeping their eyes on that. But ultimately what they want is to get to the closing table and have a successful transaction. Somebody wants to buy, somebody wants to sell. So our interests are aligned. So work as a team with that cooperating agent to find a way to make it happen. Get on the same page. And I have had this conversation countless times. Hey, Sally, I know we seem to be stuck, but we all want the same thing. Let's put our heads together and see if we can figure this out. Okay? That's how you get deals done. That's how you move transactions forward. Become the agent that every other agent wants to work with. Has anybody been in this business long enough that when you see certain agents' names on the yard sign, you don't want to go there? Mm-hmm. Right? Okay? Because you know it's not going to be easy. They take an adversarial position. They think their fiduciary duty to their client requires them to beat you up, right? Like they see a real estate transaction as a courtroom drama where it's a prosecutor and a defense, right, against each other. Conversely, there are agents, I've already dealt with them, where you see their yard sign and you're like, oh yeah, I hope my client likes this one. Mm-hmm. Because this is going to be a great transaction. I already have some agents I have repeated with a couple times. And I get so excited because I know they're reasonable, they're rational. They take this allied approach in terms of adversarial, and I know even if stuff happens, and stuff happens in a real estate transaction with them on the other side, we're going to get through it. Be that agent. Be that one that other agents want to work with. It will serve your clients well. They'll show your listings more often. And in a competitive situation, the other agents will steer that business your way. I've done that. I've had that conversation with my clients. We've got 2 offers here. They're almost identical, but I can tell you this is a professional agent. I've dealt with her before. If stuff arises during inspections, during appraisals, we're much more likely to get to the finish line with this agent and steer in that direction, okay? So make them your ally, not your adversary. All right, so let's get in. I've got just 2 core beliefs I want to share with you. And the reason that we talk about beliefs, anytime that we're talking about changing our behavior, and you wouldn't be here, right, if you didn't want to do something different, you want to learn something to be better, then you have to change your beliefs, because your beliefs are actually what's going to drive the behavior. So here's a core belief that shows up in almost every class. Conflict only arises when expectations differ. We should all have that memorized by now, right? So how does that apply to negotiations? First of all, let your client know that the other party will negotiate hard for their best interests just as we are. And there's no need to be upset by that, okay? They're not being mean, they're not being rude, they're not being stupid, they're not being unrealistic. They just want the best possible deal. So you see what you're doing. You're putting the best possible spin on it. You're setting an expectation. We're going to go through some negotiations. They might be tough. And we might have multiple negotiations before we're done, depending on what comes up in the course of the transaction. But just understand, I'm advocating for your best interests. The cooperating agent's going to advocate for the best interests of their client, but we all share the mutual goal of getting to the closing table. So just recognize, making sausage sometimes, you don't want to watch it. right? You don't want to be there on the assembly line, but you sure want it when it comes out of the frying pan. So the process is a little messy, we just understand that, but we're going to get to the dinner table. We're going to eat it when it's all done. It's going to be good, okay? Prepare your client for multiple negotiations. It's not over when you have the signed contract, right? You're going to have an option period, an inspection, you're going to negotiate repairs. If the appraisal comes in low, and it's happening a lot these days, there's going to be some major negotiations over what the final sale price is going to be. You may negotiate over non-realty items or amendments to extend the closing date if the lender, typically the lender, can't get the deal done in time. And so we're going to go through this process again and again and again. Therefore, it is really important that we have a good relationship with the other side, because we're going to need each other to get through this all the way to the end. So again, we're setting expectations with our clients. I do this with my 10 commandments for sellers, 10 commandments for buyers, where I go through different things we're going to encounter, so we set expectations in advance to forestall conflict. And then secondly, negotiate belief. It's win-win or no deal, right? And we like the sound of that, don't we? But what I want to say is, this is a default belief. It's true regardless. It is a fact. It is reality. And here's where I'm pushing you on that. Sometimes our clients will sign a contract and be angry about it, won't they? Right? Those buyers. All right, I'll sign it. I'll sign it. But they're getting the deal of the century. You know?
Yeah.
They're angry about it, right? And we need to internalize this belief that, you know what? This is the best deal my seller's getting, right? Because we've been on the market. We've been fully exposed. And nobody's offered us more money than these people. Why are we demonizing them? Why are we angry at them? They're stepping up and doing what nobody else has been willing to do, right?
That is a different angle.
No, nobody's going to sign this contract unless it's in their best interest, okay? So we need to internalize that. When I was buying a house a couple years ago, my wife and I actually put a home under contract that was listed by an agent in this office, okay? And we negotiated hard, and we got to the bottom line, and the seller was angry when he signed the contract. And the listing agent called me and said, okay, he's going to sign it, but I want you to know, or he wants you to know, he is not going to give an inch on repairs. He is not going to pay another cent no matter what the inspection shows. Well, we didn't even have the inspection done. What did we do? We withdrew from the contract, right? Right? So he was angry. That listing agent should have set his expectation. Hey, the Grays are bringing us an offer. They're paying us more than anybody else has been willing to, okay? We should be happy about this. And then, what was the second mistake she made?
She said it.
She didn't neutralize it.
She didn't neutralize it. She passed on the anger instead of neutralizing it to me, instead of, oh, the seller is so grateful for this contract. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to a fantastic relationship as we all head towards the closing table. She passed on that anger to us, and we're like, oh, well, then we're out of here. That's literally that's how we handle it as a buyer. Okay? So it's a default belief. It is a win-win if they sign. And sometimes you need to remind yourself of that and them. Okay? All right. So setting buyer expectations, and this is just some little bitty trinkets of information that many of you know if you've written a few contracts, but we do have some new agents, and so I just want to go through this in case you wonder what to put in some of these blanks on the contract. Okay? No offers will be received or taken seriously without a pre-approval letter or proof of funds. Okay, so there's no reason to get in the car and go look at houses if you haven't met with a lender and got that pre-approval letter. So let's make sure, because otherwise you're going to fall in love with the house and we can't do anything about it. And then we got to step back a couple days and get your pre-approval letter, and by then it may be gone. So we're going to start with everything in order. Second, a pre-approval letter from a reputable local lender will be looked upon more favorably by the seller. I see more and more buyers come to me now with a pre-approval letter from Quicken, okay? And I have nothing against them, or Wells Fargo, or Bank of America, but I use this verbiage when they come to me with that. I say, you know what, that's fantastic that you already have that. However, Sellers often look more favorably upon a pre-approval letter from a local lender because they have a better track record of closing on time. So even if you want to use Bank of America, and I think that's fantastic, I'm going to highly recommend that you get a pre-approval letter from my preferred lender. That way we can submit that with the offer, you talk to both, you're probably going to get a better deal even if you go with Bank of America because they know that you're shopping rates and fees. Okay? 100% of the time, when I go through that dialogue and I use it 100% of the time, they will talk to my lender and get a pre-approval letter from him. And when they do, 90% of the time they end up going with him and using him. And I've shared with you all before, my goal with every vendor relationship is to be their top referring agent. I would set that as a personal goal with everybody you do business with. If it's a landscaper, you want to give that landscaper more business than anybody else. If it's a lender, you want to be the top referring agent. When you become the #1 source of business to key vendors in your sphere, good things are going to happen to you. Okay? They're going to refer business to you. They may underwrite some of your marketing for you. So I would encourage you to set that as a personal goal. Number 3, a lowball offer typically backfires by offending the seller and causing them to harden their positions on price and terms. So, Mr. Buyer, yes, we can come in at 160 when we've already done the market analysis. We know it's at 190. You are the decision maker. Herman, if that's what you want to do, that's what we're going to do. But as your consultant, I need to let you know the possible consequences of that course of action. The seller could be offended. They may not even respond. And then if we get more serious and up our offer, they may already be hardened against us. So again, we're going to do what you want. You're the decision maker. I just want you to know the possible consequences. We're setting buyer expectations. 4, a quality CMA will tell us the market value of the home. What the home will likely sell for. That is the definition of market value, right? Yeah. What a buyer will pay for that home, given no extraneous or unusual circumstances pressurizing the deal. Okay? So if we know the market value of the home, are we in a position of power when we're negotiating? When we're making our offer? The list price, honestly, is irrelevant. If we know the market value, it doesn't matter if the seller is asking $50,000 over market. Is somebody going to pay that? 40, 30, 20, 10? No. It's going to sell for market value. So if we do our homework and we do the CMA, we are in a position of power and we can stick to our guns and we can provide logical, tangible evidence to support our offer. And then 5th, it's okay to offer less than market value. I'm not saying list price, market value. But if you're not willing to negotiate up to market value, we should not waste our time, but should instead find a home more suited to your needs. Okay? So, because somebody's going to pay market value. And all we're going to do is end up wasting a lot of time and energy and effort on our part because we're not going to get it. We're not going to get it. Okay? That's the whole idea. So, the biggest threat to the efficiency of your business is what? In a real estate sales business, what is the biggest potential time waster in your world?
A buyer that's not serious.
Buyers. 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 Unmotivated, unqualified, or unloyal.
Unreasonable.
Okay? Or unreasonable. We can add that to the list. So this setting expectations is giving you control over your business so that you don't waste time with buyers who are not prepared to buy. Okay? So here we go. Now we're into negotiations, right? And we're going to start our negotiations not at the closing table. And I had a question from an agent yesterday. Okay, Frank, you're talking about negotiations. What if you get to the closing table and there's a problem and there's the other agent? And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We're not starting this relationship at the closing table. We're going to start this relationship in a positive environment from very first contact, way, way before the closing table. Okay? So here's how it happens. When your buyer, and I'm going to take the perspective of the buyer throughout this class just for the purpose of ease of communication. Many of these will apply to the list side as well. The principles will apply, but we'll look at it from the perspective of the buyer. So call the listing agent. If your buyer is serious about putting an offer on that home, thank them for allowing you to show the home. By the way, are you guys providing feedback through CSS? Please do that. Please, your sellers want it. It's common courtesy. We should be doing that for the other agents as well. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And in my experience, only about half of agents are doing that. Well, let's be the half that's setting the standard, okay? Always provide that feedback. But if it's a home your agent's really interested in, your client, then call the listing agent. Comment on the positive features of the home. Hey Sally, I just got to show your listing at 123 Elm Street. It really showed beautifully. My buyers just loved that outdoor kitchen, okay? Now what I'm telling you may seem natural and normal, but many, many agents take exactly the opposite approach. They feel like if they comment positively on the property, they're going to disadvantage their client. Because then the listing agent's going to think, oh, they really like it, they really want it. We don't have to negotiate. We don't have to go down on the price. We don't have to go to market value. And I'm saying wrong. Don't take that approach. That's adversarial. Be positive. Be upbeat. You want that agent on your side, not on the opposite side. Okay? Compliment the agent on their marketing materials, their brochures, their sign, their in-home display, their photos. I do that all the time. My goodness, the photos you put on the MLS were fabulous. Great job. I'm gonna send those to my photographer and see if he can up his game. Okay? You want them on your side. Put some what with it?
Sugar.
Put some sugar with it. Okay? If the disclosures aren't available on the MLS, ask that copies be provided. Ask if there are any current offers on the home. If there are, ask if any of them are strong enough to be seriously considered by the seller. And if yes, ask the seller's timeline for making a decision. Yeah, we've gotten a couple offers, but the sellers are out of town. I'm meeting with them tomorrow night at 6 o'clock to review offers. That's what you need to know, right? You've got to get your offer in before 6 o'clock tomorrow night to be on the table. That's what you need to know. Let them know your buyer's considering making an offer. State that you and your client want the transaction to be a win-win for the buyer and the seller. So in preparing the offer, you'd like to know if the seller has any issues of special importance to them. Is it the price? They have to get a certain amount of money out of the deal. Is it a closing date? They need to close by a certain date in order to buy the new home that they already have under contract. Or perhaps a lease back. Yeah, we have to close quickly as possible, but our new home's not going to be ready for another 3 weeks after that, so we need to put together a lease back. Okay? Find out as much as you can about the seller's interests so that if possible, you can accommodate them in your offer. And I'm going to tell you this, the very fact that you ask that question and show concern for seller needs is going to set you apart from every other buyer's agent bringing an offer. Okay? It could make your offer different, it could, but it's certainly going to make the attitude and the atmosphere different. Okay? I would also say, does the seller have a preference for title company? By the way, does the seller have a preference for title company?
Not usually.
Never. They don't even know what the title company is, okay? They don't care. Who cares?
The seller's agent.
The listing agent. That's exactly right. And again, I advocate strongly for my preferred title companies, and I do business with those who support us in this classroom, okay? And I send them as much business as I can. And then I'm going to share with you when sometimes I will push back and arm wrestle for that. That comes up later. But I'm setting the tone here with this listing agent that we are open-minded and accommodating. Okay, that's the tone that I want to set. I'm putting sugar with it right from the very beginning. And then assure the listing agent that your client will consider the seller's needs in drafting the offer. Okay? So 6, let the listing agent know when to expect it. Describe the buyer in a positive light. You know, Sally, these buyers are really great. It's a young couple, they're relocating, being transferred with the wife's job. The husband's also a professional. We're sure he's going to find employment very quickly. They were referred to me by a close friend of mine in Dallas who is working with them to sell their home. These buyers are serious, they're pre-approved, and oh, by the way, they have to be in a home in 6 weeks. So we're serious about finding them their perfect home, okay? So I would do that. Put a positive spin on everything, and then close by stating that you're looking forward to a great working relationship with the listing agent and a positive outcome for all parties, okay? To me, this seems so obvious. This doesn't happen in most real estate transactions. And if you'll do this, you will set yourself apart and be more likely to get the what? What's the goal of our negotiations? The best possible deal for our clients. That's why we're doing this. That's our goal, okay? All right, now determining the offer price. So we've kind of set the listing agent up. We're going to bring in an offer. Now we have to craft that offer. So I'm going to say create a CMA to determine the market value. List price is almost irrelevant. Market value is what we need to know. If the home is listed over market value, advise your client to offer market value and be prepared to defend it with a CMA. So if the market value is $350 and the list price is $370, we're coming in at $350. Okay? And if we have a savvy agent on the other side, they're going to counsel their clients to accept that. And even if they counter, their seller says, well, let's just see if we can get them up. The listing agent is going to bring them to that moment of truth, that moment of reality. $350 is all anybody's going to pay for this house in this market, and we have a $350 offer, right? If the home is listed at market value, advise your client to offer no less than 98%. So if it's worth $350 and they're asking $350, we should be coming in no less than $343. We need to be at 98% and be willing to negotiate up to $350 because that's what the home is worth and that's what somebody else is going to pay for it if we don't. So if your buyer says, yeah, but let's just see if we can get a little bit, okay, we can come in under, but we need to be really close because otherwise somebody's going to get in there behind us and get that because it's worth what the sellers are asking. Fourth, if the home is offered at less than market value, we know it's worth $350, they're asking $340, we need to get in there and offer list price. And if our conversation with the listing agent indicates they've already got multiple offers, we need to be prepared to go above that. Okay? By the way, do sellers ever list their home under market value? It's actually not a bad strategy. I presented an offer on a home in the Woodlands for my niece. Get this, a 3-2, full brick, nice yard, beautiful neighborhood, impeccable condition, recent updates all through the house, $198,500. Can you believe that? I took my niece and nephew in there. The first house we looked at, I said, we don't need to look at any others. This is it. This home is perfect, and it is below market value. We need to grab it. Well, we did. We made a full price offer that night. But the listing agent said they weren't going to consider offers until Monday, and they had 6 on the table by Monday. Okay? What happened? Do you think that sold for more than market value? More than list price? Yeah, it was a strategy to attract attention and create this perception that, oh my goodness, we got some crazy sellers here. Don't know what their home is worth. And they get, at one point I was on the phone with her, I said, we can go up to 205. She said, don't even bother. Don't even bother.
Interesting.
But here's, okay.
She's smart.
Okay, now listen, throughout that whole thing, that was a very frustrating thing for me and for my clients, right? I maintained a very positive relationship with her. I put sugar with it in every communication we had, by phone and by email, okay? That deal busted out. A man bought it for his son. The son was in a motorcycle accident, was going to be hospitalized for a long time, so he backed out of the contract within a week, the guy who got it. It went back on the market. I immediately offered $198,500, the list price. Again, I already told her I'd go to $205, but I offered $198,500 and we got it. Why do you think we got it?
Your professionalism.
She
Yes.
wanted to sell it, and she wanted to sell it to somebody that she wanted to work with. They didn't even put it out for 6 more offers and 3-day delay on, we got it for 198.5.
Shouldn't she have counseled her client to offer to counter at 205 though?
It depends entirely what the seller's needs were. The seller's needs might have been to maximize the money out of the property, in which case she should have. Or it might have been they needed that thing to close fast. And they've got a full price offer on the table with a pre-approved buyer and a very cooperative agent on the other side. She might have said, let's take this thing and get to the closing table. So it depends on their needs. Okay? So I'm telling you, this stuff works. Okay? And it will serve your client very, very well. Okay. In a multiple offer situation, advise your client to offer the highest price they're willing to pay for the home, even if it's over list price, and or market value. Do homes ever go under contract for more than market value? That almost seems like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Because market value means, what is a buyer willing to pay? If we're willing to pay, that redefines market value, doesn't it? Maybe I should say appraised value. Maybe I should say appraised value. Because there are going to be issues if there are no comps to support this price. And sometimes buyers do get in a frenzy and they push something up over market value, over what anything would support it, you know, in the real world. If that's the case and you're representing the buyer and they're paying cash, very important, you want to put in special provisions, a clause, that if the home does not appraise for contract price, they may withdraw from the contract and receive their earnest money back. Now, why did I specify only do that on a cash contract?
Because it doesn't have to appraise, right? Because they're not getting a loan, so they don't, it doesn't need
The
to.
appraisal is ordered by the lender, they're not
Yeah.
using
They
the
might
lender.
not get one.
Okay, yes. Why don't we put that in if it's a financed offer?
Because they won't
Because
finance
it's
it, it's not
already,
a pay
yeah,
for
it's
it.
not gonna get financed, yeah.
Well, you have the financing addendum.
Yes, it specifies right
Subject
in
to.
the contract, right?
There must be
That-
appraised.
Somebody brought up the third-party financing addendum. Who has to qualify under the third-party financing addendum? Who is seeking loan approval?
The buyer.
Okay, under the 1-to-4 family contract, what has to qualify for this home to
The
close?
financing.
The appraisal,
The home.
yeah, the house.
Yeah.
The third party deals with the people. The contract actually deals with the home itself. So like, for example, in a third-party financing addendum, you may allow 21 days for the buyer to get full loan approval. If they don't get it within those 21 days and they don't withdraw within that 21 days, and they have to withdraw from the contract, if they don't get financing, they lose their earnest money, right? Well, what if it's day 25? Okay? They're past the financing period, but the home doesn't appraise. Can they withdraw and get their money back?
It's busted, right?
Why? Can they get their money back now?
Yeah, because it's based on the appraisal, so the lender won't approve it, and that's what's stated in the.
That's right. In the 1-to-4 family, if the home does not qualify for financing, they can withdraw right up to the day of closing and get their earnest money back. So you don't need to write this in special provisions if it's a financed offer. In fact, it's a violation of TREC rules to do that, to put anything in special provisions that's already addressed in the contract. I got an offer last week on a financed offer where the agent wrote in special provisions that the home has to appraise for contract value. And I didn't say anything to her, but I just kind of chuckled internally. She hadn't read the contract, right? Or she would have known that that was completely unnecessary, okay? All right, other terms. So we've been talking about the offer price and how we determine that. Let's just talk about some of the other blanks on the contract. And again, this is old stuff for those of you all who've written contracts, but I know we have some agents in here who've never written a contract. So let me just go through what is typical in our marketplace. Number one, take the seller's needs into consideration and accommodate them when you can. When did we learn about the seller's needs?
phone call.
Initial phone call.
in our phone call to the listing agent. And if they need a certain close date, if they need a certain amount of money out and you can accommodate that, if they need a lease back, whatever that is, if you can accommodate a title company, then do that. Secondly, the seller typically pays for the owner's title policy. It is a negotiable item, but it is standard practice in this area for the seller to pay for that. 3, a typical option fee is about $100 for every $100,000 of contract value. So a house that's $300,000 is going to be about $300 option fee. Now you can go higher, you can go lower, but that's just typical. Okay? In a competitive situation, consider increasing this amount to demonstrate seriousness. Okay? If everybody else is coming in at 1% and you come in at 2%, you're offering $600 on a $310,000 contract. Even if the sale price is the same, you have differentiated your offer from everybody else. A typical earnest money deposit is 1% of the offer price, or somewhere, if there's an easy $1,000 round off nearby, you can use that figure. There is little risk in increasing this amount, and it can make the offer more attractive. Why is there little risk? You've got the option period, you can still withdraw. You still have the third-party financing addendum if it's financed, okay? There's little risk in increasing the earnest money deposit, and it can, we call it sometimes this, it's a distinction without a difference. In the end, it typically doesn't matter, but it makes it look better. Now, the option fee is different. That's a distinction with a difference. Because your buyers are out that money if they don't close. Okay, that money is gone. Now, if they close, it's all applied. But consider playing with those numbers as appropriate in different situations to distinguish your offer. If you come in low on either one of these, low compared to what's typical, your contract's going to be flagged as suspicious. I know when I get one in, it's a $300,000 contract and they're offering me a $100 option fee. I'm like, what's wrong with these people, or what's wrong with that agent? Okay? Why aren't they even just doing what's standard practice? You don't want to create that perception. Remember, this is all about creating a positive environment for win-win negotiations. Okay, on the third-party financing, 21 to 25 days is a typical time frame. You know, sometimes you might need a little more, a little less, but that's fairly typical. It won't raise any eyebrows if you submit an offer with that time frame. For a closing date, you'll typically want to ask for about 3 weeks on a cash purchase, 6 weeks on a financed purchase, and 8 weeks on a VA loan. And if our friends at the title companies are right, we're probably going to be asking for about 8 weeks on every financed offer. About 8 weeks. You know, given into October. After October 3rd, that's when the new TRID requirements go into place. And we better start putting 8 weeks on our financed offers just until they get the kinks ironed out. We may get back to 6 weeks at some point. We may never get there. But nobody knows right now. But just keep that in mind when you start writing offers after October 3rd. Give yourself some wiggle room. And let me just throw this out there. A lot of agents still believe that the closing date in the contract is the date on which you have to close. Is that what the contract says?
On or before.
On or before. So we're going to build a little wiggle room in here, but all parties agree that if we're capable of closing earlier, we're going to. Okay? That's verbiage that will save you a million headaches in negotiating that and trying to get a date further out or pushed out. We may not need to go there, Christy, but let's just put it in the contract so that we don't have to go through the hassle of getting an amendment to extend the closing date if it's necessary. Okay? 10 days is a typical time period for an option period. If you can schedule an inspection quickly and offer a shorter time period, the offer will be more attractive to the sellers. You know, if you've already checked with your inspector and he can be out there tomorrow, then you don't need 10 days. Because you'll typically have your inspection report within 24 hours. You know, now there may come up issues on the inspection that you might need an HVAC specialist or a roof specialist inspection. So don't just put 48 hours in there, right? Give yourself a minimum of 5 days, but a 5-day or a 7-day option period can be very attractive to a seller. It shows serious intent on the part of your buyers. It can be one of those factors that differentiates your offer in a multiple offer situation. Okay, so it's not always about the money. All right, number 8, here we go. This is the arm wrestling part. Use your preferred title company unless the listing agent has expressed a strong preference for their title company. And again, this is when you're trying to keep a positive environment. You want them on your side. You want them looking at your offer favorably. However, if you feel you have negotiating power, this home has been on the market for 6 months, right? Nobody's ever made an offer on it, and here we're coming in at 98% of list, then I'd go to bat for your title company. Although, I would explain your rationale for doing it. So the listing agent puts in their First American and you want to use Chicago, okay? They're both fine companies, by the way, both great companies. How do you justify that? And I'm going to encourage you, you're going to see this come out again and again in today's class. Every point of your offer, every position that you take, I'm going to ask you to justify and explain it to the cooperating agent. So they understand why you're offering this price, why you're asking this many days for the option period, okay? So if you go in there and are going against their wishes on the title company, have a reason for it, okay? And great reasons are it's for the convenience of the buyer. They live right around the corner, or they have closed with this title company before and they have a strong preference for it, okay? Have some reason for your decision, okay? I was in one of these situations recently where the listing agent had expressed a preference for a title company, and I wanted to keep some sugar with it, but I also wanted my title company. And so what I did was I sent an email and I acknowledged her preference. And then I said the buyer would prefer to work with a title company in the Woodlands, and here are 3 that I work with on a regular basis. Would any of these 3 work for your seller? And she chose one. And I think she felt good about that because I gave her a choice. And she was actually able to stay with her preferred brand, but just close with that brand in the Woodlands. So just, if you try to get your preferred title company as much business as possible, but don't just strong arm, don't just beat up, don't just demand, okay? Do it in a way that keeps the relationship positive, okay? Any questions or input on that? Yes.
Yeah, I felt like, I've tried to do that before when I was representing the buyer, and the response was, well, the sellers are paying for the title policy, so they should be able to choose whoever they want to close with.
Yeah.
And they said if we want to pay title policy, like the whole thing, then we can choose.
Yeah, it's really
That's in some
irrelevant.
listings too, actually. Some
There,
listings say that.
the way that Trek rules are, if the seller's paying, they cannot demand. They cannot insist, even though the seller's paying. If the buyer is paying, the buyer can insist. It's kind of candywampus, it sounds like, but that's the way the rules are written, okay?
Okay.
So just because they say seller's paying, seller chooses, that is not correct.
Because I actually saw a listing, I was looking at listings last night, and there was one under agent remarks that said, use this title company if you want the sellers to pay
Yes.
for title.
Yes. Now, I would encourage you, do not get in a slugfest over that. And don't feel like you need to educate that listing agent. It's typically not worth it.
Okay.
Even if you're right, you're going to sour the atmosphere and the relationship. So if you feel like you want to use your title company, find a soft and sweet way of coming back and asking for that. But don't lose a transaction over it or jeopardize, again, the best possible deal for your client, because your client doesn't really care. This is about you, right? And we have to put the client's interest first. So don't jeopardize the transaction trying to steer business to your title company. Just do it if you can do it along with the best possible deal, okay? First things first. All right, so now presenting the offer. We've made contact, we've crafted our offer, now we're ready to submit. So I'm going to run through several things that I think are going to help you here. Number 1, even if you have the buyer sign the offer documents electronically, send them to the listing agent as PDFs. Okay, and I recognize in DocuSign you can put the whole circle of relationships signing the contract on there. Personally, I'm uncomfortable doing that. Okay, I want them coming back to me electronically. I'm going to save them to my hard drive as PDFs. Then I'm going to email them to the listing agent. It just precludes any funny business. And I recognize they've got safeguards built in that people can't go in and change the contracts. But if nothing else, it gives me one more chance to review those documents, now that they're signed by my client, before I send them over for signature. Okay? It's my You're getting a heavy dose of my opinions today. That's one of my opinions. All right? 2, write a warm cover note to the listing agent. This is in your email where you're sending the PDF offer. Okay? And here are several things that you want to mention in this warm, sugar-fied cover note. Okay? State that you're pleased to present the attached offer for their listing at 123 Elm Street, so they know exactly, and it should say in your subject line, offer-123 Elm Street, okay? Dear Sally, I am pleased to present the attached offer for your listing at 123 Elm Street. Say it again. List all the attached documents. Please find below the following documents: the family 1 to 4, the third-party financing addendum, the HOA, the MUD. Any documents that you have related to the transaction, list them there so they can see that this is as complete an offer as you can present. There are times at this point you still won't have all the disclosures, okay? But then you're going to ask for that, right? If you're lacking any disclosure documents because they've not been provided, go ahead and ask for them at this point. But show them in this message that you're a professional. You know your game. You're not just throwing something up against the wall. You have prepared a carefully crafted offer. 5, include copies of the earnest money check and the option fee check. And I think most of y'all are aware, earnest money checks should always be cashier's checks. Why?
They can't be held like a personal check if there's a discrepancy in titles holding it in escrow.
That's right. If the deal busts out, even if all parties agree to release the funds back to the buyer, the title company will not release those funds until they have cleared their bank, and typically they will hold them for 15 days. If your buyer is short on cash, that's going to keep them from making another offer until they get that money back, and you're going to have a very angry buyer on your hands. So always have them do that with a cashier's check or money order so the title company can release those funds. By the way, if you're ever in that situation, they paid by personal check, you can get around it if you're able to do your new offer at the same title company, right? But that's not always possible, okay? An option fee check can be a personal check. That's not a big deal, and it should be made out to the seller. Number 6, if your offer is less than list price, include a CMA justifying your offer price. You didn't just pick this number out of the sky, right? You're a professional, you did your homework, you consulted your client, you are making a reasonable offer based upon your analysis of the market. If the buyer needs a response by a certain date and time, express that need and the reason for it. Now, in some states, they actually have deadlines on contract offers. You know, it's void if not, signed by seller by a certain date and time. We don't do that in Texas. And so if your buyer needs that, express it, and I'll give you some verbiage for that in just a moment.
I thought we could get a special provisions, no?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Should you put a deadline for the offer in special provisions?
You can, but I mean, that's creating demands in a situation where you actually presented an offer. And so if you're the listing agent and you receive something like that, how would you present it to your clients? Maybe not in the same light, in the same tone, then, it's pretty much is do this or else.
Yeah.
Now, there are situations in where your clients may be in a situation that if these people will not accept this offer, we have a great second choice, and so time is of the essence for them to make a decision. Maybe not in this market, maybe a year ago, you will want to do something like that because properties were moving very quickly. But you will want to give a listing agent and their clients the courtesy of being able to sleep on it.
Okay.
And so I've seen offers that are presented at 9:30 in the morning, and they got a deadline of 5 p.m. that afternoon.
Oh, well.
And you just go like, really?
I got one yesterday, and they were, or the day before, and it's not from Agent around Woodlands either. But it's, and we must have our answer, right away. And I'm like,
It sets us
well, good for you, because you won't get one.
So I'm gonna, let's hold this conversation, because I'm gonna give you some actual language. If your buyer's in a pressure situation time-wise, I'll give you some scripting for that, okay? It doesn't need to be in the offer contract.
Right.
It can be verbal
Verbal.
communication, it can be email communication.
Okay.
That would be the way I would suggest you handle it, okay? All right, 8, ask the listing agent to let you know immediately if they need anything else from you. You've done your best to present a complete contract offer. If there's anything else you need, just let me know. Ask them to reply confirming receipt of the offer, because that's a professional courtesy, and it's okay to ask for that. And then close by stating that you're eager to work with them for a win-win outcome and are looking forward to a positive reply to the offer. I always close that way. Looking forward to a positive reply. Very excited to hear positive response from your sellers. Okay? Just, again, set that you're creating a win-win environment, very positive, expectant tone. Okay? Now, negotiating the offer. Let's presume that you get it signed. I'm sorry, no, they haven't accepted it. You've submitted the offer. But now you're going to start negotiating it, because typically offers are not accepted the first time they're presented, typically, okay? Most negotiations, would you agree, experienced agents, are taking place by phone or by email? As opposed to the old days where you would actually take the offer contract, write it up, make changes, initial changes, submit that back, right? That doesn't typically happen these days. The agents are talking to their clients, they're negotiating back and forth, trying to get to a deal that will then be memorialized once everybody is in agreement. Now, here we go. Most agents are comfortable negotiating by phone and email rather than drafting a new written offer for each counter. However, you must be very careful not to commit to something in an email message. If your buyers then refuse to sign the final draft, you could be held liable. A case could be made. Electronic communication is considered written communication in Texas real estate law. Always phrase your negotiations in a way that doesn't commit you or your buyers to a certain course of action. And I realize that, you're like, what does that mean? Well, here we go. Okay, would the sellers consider blah, blah, blah? You haven't committed to that, right? You haven't said your buyers would accept it. Would the sellers consider? Hey, I think the buyer would be pleased with a deal that looks like this. I'd like to take a package back to my buyer like this. Perhaps we could meet them in the middle at something like. That sounds like something that could work. Let me check with the buyer. There's nothing in here that forms a contract. Do you see what I'm saying? You're not committing to anything. You're working out possibilities. And then you're going to go back and get commitment from your buyer. I think you're going to be on much safer ground to negotiate in this manner. And I yield the floor.
Well, I'll just simply say that I have seen it over the years, and I think it's a great idea. In any written communication during the process of negotiation, that you may want to have a disclaimer at the bottom of your email. You may have seen it yourselves, and where you may say something to the effect that any communications during this negotiation process does not constitute a commitment
Yes.
by my clients
There you go.
to this. And in that respect, then you will have expressed that these are simply communications between the negotiators.
Yes, that's great advice. Herman?
When you're communicating via email, can't you just put on your email at the bottom that this email does not bind any specific party, and then it pretty much states that anything in the email is
That's
open game, right?
That's a distinction without a difference. That's what Raul, that's the same point Raul's making,
Okay.
so I think you're in the right place.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Negotiating the offer. Just the facts. I don't encourage you to do that. Don't just put in there, offer price $175, 10-day option fee, $200 option. No. Okay? Because written words can fail to convey emotion and context. Be extremely careful not just to send facts and terms in your messages. always fully explain each point of the offer, both to the cooperating agent and to your buyer. This is putting sugar with it. Otherwise, if you're just throwing numbers back and forth, that's when people tend to get crossways. What, do they think we're stupid or something? Can't they run the comps? Don't they know? That's when you get this kind of stuff, when you're just throwing facts and figures back and forth. And again, I realize that may sound theoretical, so I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. So here we go. To the listing agent, this is like when you're presenting your offer. Our offer price is $275. We recognize that the asking price for the home is $290. However, our comps show a value in the $270 to $275 range, so we're coming in at the top of the range. What are we showing right there? Good faith, right? We're reasonable, we've done our homework, and we're really making a strong offer, the top of the range, okay? Of course, if you have any information supporting a market value of $290, please send it over and we will give it every consideration. You see how we've just presented ourselves as very reasonable people who are making what may at first appear to be a lowball offer, but we're saying no. Based upon our research, it's a strong offer. So we're providing some context and we're not just throwing a number, okay? Now that's to the cooperating agent. Now what about to our own client? Do we sometimes need to interpret and provide context for our clients? Oh yes. So here's just an example of that. So to the buyer in this same situation, the sellers have countered at $285. That's $10,000 over what we consider to be the market value of the home. However, the sellers have provided a list of recent upgrades that could potentially add $20,000 in market value to the home. They should have put it on the MLS. It wasn't. We didn't get it until we submitted the offer. From their perspective, the home is a bargain at $285. So you see, this is not just a number thrown about. This number has meaning. It has context. So now our buyers can look at this list of upgrades and see how that compares to other homes in the market. Maybe we want to take a deeper look at the comps that we use to establish market value and see if these upgrades that they've made have simply brought the home up to neighborhood standard, or have they truly moved the value of the home to a new level. Okay? So we've got context. And if we respond to this offer, we're doing so from an informed position. Okay? Does all this make sense? So support your offer and your conversations. Okay? If the seller fails to respond in a timely manner, and we've all had this happen, right? Like what happened to that offer? It just went off the end of the earth. Reach out to the listing agent with an explanation of why you need a response by a certain date and time. This is back to our conversation earlier. So again, you're not just demanding we need a response by 5 p.m. We're explaining that. Hey, the buyer's only in town for 3 days, and they have to have something under contract during that period. So if you could respond by tomorrow evening, we'd really appreciate it. That would still give us another day to find something. Okay, context. The buyer has a second home they're interested in, and if this deal doesn't work out, he sure doesn't want to lose that one too. Okay, that's just, you're providing context. The buyer has to be in a new home in 6 weeks, so we've got to get something buttoned up pretty quick. Would you mind letting us know by tomorrow evening? Okay. Again, this is another expression of just putting sugar with it. You're not just making a demand. It's not an arbitrary, well, who do they think they are to order us around? You're explaining the reason. Does all that make sense? Okay. All right. If your buyer tires of the negotiations and decides to pursue other options, you must withdraw the offer. Don't leave it hanging out there. Okay? And the simplest way to do that is to send an email message to the listing agent. Dear Sally, our buyer has decided to pursue other options. So please accept this message as formal notice that we are withdrawing our offer for your listing at 123 Elm Street. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I look forward to working with you on transactions in the future. Okay, very, very positive.
I have a question. So if you have that disclaimer at the bottom of your email and you say that we're formally retracting our offer, does it still apply?
Herman, what do you think?
Seriously?
I guess on that one,
I don't have an answer.
Maybe we delete it for that
yeah,
communication.
that one
Oh, we're
email.
gonna delete that.
I'm not an attorney.
Okay, so kind of back to the main point of the day. Emotions can run high during negotiations, right? People can get angry, frustrated. Your buyer may be tempted to personalize the process. The seller's just being greedy. The seller's trying to take advantage of me. The seller's crazy if he thinks his house is worth that much. Does the seller think we're stupid? Have y'all ever heard buyers say these things? Or sellers about the other party, the buyer's trying? You know? Who is in a position to neutralize these emotions? We are the professional. That's exactly right. So you want to step into that leadership role. That's one of the reasons you get paid, right? Is to keep this transaction together, because buyers and sellers couldn't do it on their own. They'd kill each other before they ever got to the closing table. That's why we're here. That's why there is such a thing as real estate agents, is to be that buffer. You must remain calm and professional throughout the entire process, even if the seller is unreasonable, okay? Even if somebody is crazy. Are there crazy people out there? Oh yes. Are there rude people out there? Demanding people, unreasonable people. Now I'm not talking about your husband or wife. Okay? I'm talking about in this context of real estate, okay? Just very carefully, never ever criticize the seller or the listing agent. Never criticize the cooperating agent or the cooperating client to your client. Never ever go there, even if you can't stand them. Even if you're experiencing the same emotions of your client, never let that come through. You are the buffer. You are the professional. So you're going to have to rephrase, recontext what's happening to your client if you want to keep this deal together. So just some examples. Hey, the seller's just seeking the best possible deal, which is exactly what we're doing. This is a normal part of the process. This is what buyers and sellers do in the process of getting to the closing table. So it's really going to be okay. This is a normal process that buyers and sellers go through when negotiating a deal. Hey, they didn't accept our offer, but we're moving closer to an agreement, right? It's a process, one step after another. And even though we didn't get to the goal line, we made a first down. Right? We got yardage. Not every quarterback scores a touchdown with every pass, but if you move the ball down the field, that's progress. That's a win. And that's what we have here. Right? We're making progress. So let's just stay in the game, stay in the process. Okay? You're just recontextualizing and neutralizing the emotions. Okay? Very important. You cannot control emotions through text and email. Please understand this. When communicating with your buyer or with the cooperating agent and tensions are high or emotions are high, please put down the email, put down the text, and pick up the phone and talk to these people. When communicating with your buyer, you must do it in person or by phone when the stakes are high. Okay? Because again, communication, it's not just the words, right? It's the tone, it's the attitude, it's the pacing, and you can't give all that typically in email. So let me just give you some examples of that. These words are exactly the same, but their meaning is different. Let's eat, Grandpa, or let's eat, Grandpa. Right? That's different. Don't have any ideas, Christy. Okay. Eats, shoots, and leaves. What are we talking about? A panda bear. Isn't that what they do? They eat, shoots, and leaves. Eats, shoots, and leaves. What are we talking about? Drunk cowboy, right? Came in and shot up the place. Now here's my favorite. Okay? Stop clubbing baby seals. Or stop clubbing baby seals. Okay? Rosemary knows what clubbing is all about. She's identified with this one. Okay? All right, so you can provide this context, this tone, this emotion when they're hearing your voice, the pacing, the pauses, and you'll just virtually eliminate the possibility of miscommunication. All right? Okay. If you sense the seller, the other side, or the listing agent's losing patience or is not understanding the offer or the situation, again, pick up the phone. Hey, the buyer really wants to make this work. He just wants to make sure he's not overpaying for the home. Don't criticize your client to them, because sometimes our client is the issue, right? Again, so contextualize our client in a positive way, even if we know they're crazy. He just wants to make sure he's not overpaying. Hey, the buyer really appreciates the seller's patience. Does the buyer appreciate the seller's patience?
No.
Okay, that's why we're here. Hey, the buyer really appreciates the seller's patience. This is taking longer than we all hoped, but we are completely committed to a successful outcome. Hang in there with us. That's the message. Okay? Let me assure you, we're negotiating in good faith and doing everything possible to reach an agreement. I know that's what we all want. Okay? Put some sugar with it. That's the message of the day. All right? Now, let's get to repairs. Presuming we got this offer buttoned up, right? We're not done. We're going to have an inspection. The inspector is going to come back with how many items that need repair.
The whole report, the whole
50
thing.
pages.
What if the house is only a year old?
They'll still have.
What if it's a brand new house? Nobody's lived in it.
They'll still be
Same
problems.
thing. Do you see how you need to set that expectation for your buyer? Otherwise, they are going to be freaked out when they see this inspection report. They're going to think they bought a lemon, right? So set that expectation. This inspector is going to find all kinds of stuff. However, when we review it, we're going to do it through a certain lens. And that lens is we're going to spot anything that impacts the safety, the functionality, or the structural integrity of the home. That's what we're looking for. The inspector is looking for a whole bunch of other stuff. You know, homeowner maintenance items, and the gutters have got leaves in them, okay? And there's black mold on the driveway, it needs to be power washed off. We're not going to look for those things. The paint's chipped, we're not going to look at those things. We're going to look for safety, functionality, and structural integrity, okay? It's usually, I put that in quotes, not appropriate to ask for code updates. How often do the building codes change? All the time. And the inspectors are trained to look for that and to note it on the inspections. If a financial settlement is negotiated in terms of, okay, we're not going to ask for any repairs, but we want a $3,000 seller contribution, and then the buyer will make all these repairs after closing. Does that ever happen? Please do not put on the amendment in lieu of repairs. Why not? Lender will kick it right back. They're not going to loan money on a lemon, are they? On a broken house. So you just simply do the amendment and you put in there the 12A 1B seller contribution towards buyer closing costs $3,000 and you leave it alone. Okay? No explanation. All right. Negotiating repairs. When submitting your amendment for repairs or seller contribution, send the inspection report. And I would say do that even if they told you not to. And do you sometimes get listing agents that say, do not send us that inspection report?
Yes.
Why would they say
They
that?
get so upset.
They know they have to disclose it in the future, but whose client are you representing? Your client, right? And you have to justify your request unless they're going to start writing you big fat checks and remodel the whole house for you. They're not going to do that without justification. And by the way, even if they know an inspection has been done on the seller's disclosure, they have to note that. Even if they never received it, they have to disclose that an inspection was done, and then a buyer can go get a copy. So they're really not protecting their client by refusing to, or saying that they don't want to copy the inspection. So I say send the inspection report, link each request to an item on the inspection report, okay? So we're asking that this malfunctioning electrical circuit, as noted on page 12, item 8 of the attached inspection report, be repaired. Okay, that type of thing. And if you obtained estimates for repair, attach them. Sometimes that happens. Okay, so just complete justification for every item. Here's some verbiage. Please find the attached repair amendment. You'll note that the buyer has been very reasonable. You're setting context for the listing agent, and is only asking for items that impact the safety, functionality, and structural integrity of the home. Okay? What you're trying to do is equip the listing agent to go back and have a conversation with the seller. This is where you really need allies, not adversaries. And you're going to give them all the information they need to go back and get their seller to be reasonable. Because the seller thinks they gave away the farm when they agreed to the contract price, right? They feel like they got no more room to move. And so, well, they've already got some repair estimates here. And you know what? Now that the inspection has been done, we're going to have to reveal this to anybody else who looks at your home, and they're going to require the same thing. So we might as well eat the big frog now instead of later, right? Eat it hot instead of cold. Let's go ahead and get it done. If you have to eat a frog, right?
Yeah.
You want it hot.
Yeah.
So Frank, I have a seller right now who has 2 inspection reports, and he put that on his seller's disclosure, obviously.
Yes.
So then we had the inspection report, so we had a buyer very interested, they wanted to look at the inspection report, we provided it.
Yes.
The seller provided it. And so during the negotiations before repairs, she's trying to negotiate the repairs out with the, before we're.
Before the option period?
Yeah.
Before you're under contract?
And I'm like, okay, well, and she was pretty feisty, this lady.
Yeah.
Not doing any too much sugar. And,
A lot of
and
vinegar?
so now I told her, I said, look, the more you take now, the less you'll have when you get your new inspection.
That's
because
right.
the buyers are, and she's like, I told the buyers that. So now they're doing inspections.
Yes.
And she's already sending me items that she wants to
Yeah.
do. Like that was hard for me, well, for me
Yeah.
to help the seller because, yeah, okay, it says an AC is kind of old and they already know it.
Right.
But they're trying to negotiate repairs before the
Yes.
option's actually in.
So are they wanting to put in the original offer contract instead of as is? They're trying to do repairs?
No, she's just getting the price down because of what the inspection report says. So
Without a
she's
repair amendment?
Well, we're negotiating the price. We haven't even gotten to a repair amendment. She's
Okay.
just trying to negotiate the price. Because we see that this, and this is here, we're going ahead and taking the price down now.
You're trying to do that verbally?
She's trying,
You're
during
not in an
negotiations.
option period?
No, because she's already looked at the inspection report that he already has.
Oh, but they're doing an inspection
They're doing an
themselves?
inspection,
But they're not under an option period.
they're in an option
Okay.
period now.
Okay.
I was confused.
Okay.
Anyway, so basically what I'm saying is she's trying to negotiate repairs from the past inspection, negotiate the price down
Yeah.
before. And so it was hard for me to.
Well, so you want to, here's what I would just simply say
I
to
had
that
share
buyer.
with the inspection.
I would say our best opportunity to get you the best possible deal is to package all of this in one repair amendment.
Yeah.
We don't want to send something over to the seller and then 2 days later send them something else. They're going to say, hey, we already wrapped that up. So just say we're gonna
I'm the
get,
seller's agent, so I had to present, we had to,
then say get all your requests together and submit them to us in one amendment, and that way we'll know exactly what we're talking about. Okay?
So they can use both, if you have an inspection and you run another one,
They can use both. They can use neither, because
well, we had to come to an agreement with the price before option came. Because we had to negotiate a price for the house, and then we go into option.
right. So you have a contract.
Yeah,
So there's a price in the contract.
yeah,
So if they're asking to change the price, basically you can change the price by amendment.
yeah.
But typically, you'll do that by seller contribution unless you're concerned about appraisal or something. But just get it all together. Say, yeah, I understand you've got an old inspection, you've got a new inspection. Let's get it all together. You know, have your buyer decide exactly what they're asking for, then submit that to us as one package. Okay? That's how I'd do it. Otherwise, the seller's going to be aggravated by that process. Okay, so quiz time. And there may not be right or wrong answers, okay? Is it reasonable or not reasonable for a buyer to ask for repair or compensation for these issues? Hot water heater is 10 years old, but functioning.
No.
It's not reasonable? Okay. AC drip pan shows signs of rust.
That's always on there. Always.
Every single inspection report I've ever read. I think they put rusty pans in new construction.
There's nothing to do with our humidity either, right?
Always on there.
Reasonable, not reasonable?
No.
It's missing 3 shingles.
That could be a potential problem.
I say
I
Oh.
don't know.
it's reasonable.
Okay, so my criteria is safety, functionality, or structural integrity. Does that?
Structural integrity.
Yeah. Yeah, anything to do with the roof, I want it, if it's broken, I want it fixed. Home built in 1983 lacks GFCIs in the kitchen.
I
No
think it's an
issue.
easy fix.
Yeah,
an easy
that's
fix,
what
I
I mean,
agree.
it's an easy
An easy fix for who?
The seller.
The seller. Well, so the seller says if it's an easy fix, the buyer can do it themselves after closing, right?
Right.
It's not working.
That's true.
I
It's
think
Is it a
Bringing it up-
safety issue?
it is
Yeah.
a safety issue.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see where there's some gray area here. And some of these, I say, don't typically argue over code updates. But if it's a code that's a safety issue, you might want to consider it, okay? GFCI's in the kitchen next to the bathtub. Or maybe ask for a few $100s so the buyer could do it themselves after closing. I'm not saying you should, I'm just saying this is one of those areas where you really want to look carefully at it.
Buyers tend to be pretty adamant about that.
Yes, yes. Driveway needs to be power washed.
No,
That's a maintenance item. Roof sags over the garage.
Yes.
maybe.
Structurally.
Depends on the sag.
Yeah, I'd be concerned personally. That's a structural integrity issue to me.
Yeah.
I would at least want to get it inspected by a roofer,
I would agree.
okay, or a framer or something, okay? Again, there's no right or wrong answers on some of these. Just some of you new agents need to be prepared. Every AC pan has rust,
Yeah.
okay? Some of them are rusted badly. Some of them have holes rusted through. Some are holding water. Those are bad signs. But don't just automatically, when you see rust, start screaming, the seller better put a new AC pan in there. That's an expensive process.
And it's not caulked around the outside light fixtures.
That's exactly right.
Insects
Yeah.
can penetrate.
That's right.
Yeah.
Freak out.
That's right. Yeah, again,
Those bugs are going in and out.
I know. They're partying in the light fixture. That's right, that's exactly how they write it too. Okay, very
Get a
good.
pest contract.
All right, so just this can help you in these situations. Having the sellers pay for a home warranty can ease many concerns over functioning but old appliances such as hot water heaters and HVAC units. That's what you're going to tell your buyer, right? Yep, that AC unit's 15 years old, but the inspection report came out, it is operating as it's supposed to, right? It might be nearing the end of its useful life, but we don't know. Sometimes these things go 18, 19, 20 years. That's why we're going to get you a home warranty. And by the way, the older the home, the better the warranty I would get. I'd pay for all those upgrades. Don't just do the standard. Because what you're getting with those higher packages on the warranty is these code changes or matching old equipment and new equipment. They might have a home warranty to replace the AC, and sure enough, the home warranty company pays $2,000 and the buyers get a bill for $3,000. And they think I had a home warranty. It's because of all these things that are not covered by the basic plan. So the older the home, the better the warranty you need. Okay? All right. Negotiating appraisals. So we're through one hurdle, now we're to another. The seller is likely stuck with the appraisal, just like an inspection, since a new appraiser will not want to challenge the first one. And this is what sellers often say. Hey, that appraiser stuck us, let's just go pay for another appraisal. Let's get another one. And I've just never seen that work. I don't think you're going to get a significant difference. And they're typically looking at the same information anyway. And I realize that some appraisers are not good. Sometimes you get a bad appraiser, but you may not get a better appraisal after you have that bad appraiser. Okay? The seller's only realistic option for a higher sale price is a cash buyer who wants to pay over appraisal. Not a lot of those out there.
Some.
There are some. That's why I say unlikely, but not unheard of. Okay? If the appraisal is close, but presuming under contract price, the seller may agree to lower the price to appraised value, or the parties can split the difference, and I see it both ways. Okay? Because, hey, we all want this to happen. It's just a few $1,000s. Let's each pitch in and make it happen. If the appraisal is way low, there is usually some form of negotiation that favors the buyer. And we just had one of these in Katy. VA appraisal came in $35,000 under contract. It wasn't an expensive home, it was like $185,000. And the appraisal came in at $155,000. It was ridiculous. And by the way, the appraiser was wrong,
How'd you find
Okay.
out?
because I ran the comps.
Okay,
I knew what the value was on the home.
so then what'd you do?
We negotiated a settlement, and the seller took it in the shorts. Yeah, that's the way it works. A seller is typically going to lose when they get a bad appraisal. You need to know this, don't you?
So how do you protect them from getting a bad one?
Okay, I'm gonna say this, I should turn off the camera. In my experience, VA appraisers are notorious for coming in low. I'm just saying that. Okay, Raul?
I simply would say that any government-backed loans, BAs and FHAs, do not go away. Meaning that if you choose to do a different appraisal, you're gonna have to still deal with the first one.
Yep.
And protesting an appraisal value is like pulling teeth
Yep.
without any medication. It's it's very difficult to do. So, if you have any opportunity of working with a buyer and you have an opportunity to have a trusted lender, the lenders frequently have experience with the appraisal groups
Yes.
that they work with. We tend to have more issues with appraisers that are the result of large bank institutions.
Yes.
Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, and such.
Compass.
So
BBV, whatever they are.
AT&T?
the problem is that the banks cannot choose the appraisers. They have to go to a management company. The management company has a pool of appraisers to choose from, but they cannot choose them. They actually assign them, sometimes without regards to expertise in any geographical area. So you could have a home in the Woodlands, and somebody could be coming from a distant part of the city.
Yes.
Huntsville, sometimes Richmond, Texas, sometimes areas that are within 30 miles or in 30 miles distance. And if you get somebody to do an appraisal in Katy, and the people are coming from Humboldt, they may have no idea as to what the current market conditions are.
Right.
When you deal with mortgage brokers, trusted mortgage brokers, someone that you have good communication with, they usually have a select group of appraisers who tend to be more competent and more familiar with the areas that they appraise.
Yep.
I'll leave it at that.
Did you have a comment, Janice?
Oh, I just had a question on the appraisal. I have, someone that asked me that their house is listed with another agent, but they got an offer on the house, but the house didn't appraise. Okay, so they got whatever the offer was, the house didn't appraise. So they terminated and are back on the market
Okay.
at the same price, but what do you do with that? If that was my listing and the house didn't appraise?
Was it FHA?
Yeah, so
you're
it didn't appraise, but,
FHA?
and then they put it back, yeah, and then they put.
FHA? Well, that stays there for 6 months.
Right.
They
So,
need
I
a
mean,
cash buyer.
That's what I mean, so what do you?
A cash buyer.
Yeah, okay, they weren't my clients,
No,
but
there's-
they asked me about it and said,
It's
he
out
was like,
there.
well, I'm not selling it because
Yeah.
it didn't, okay. I
That was
didn't-
probably not a good strategy on their part to relist. They probably should have negotiated
It's
some
for
type of
6
settlement.
months? Is that how
Okay.
long?
Okay.
Is VA the same on the appraisal?
Yeah, it's a
6
government,
months?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, oh yes,
Can you
Christie.
Can you present like a package to the appraiser, like a comp package or something?
Yes, some of them are open to that if you want to go out. Some people meet the appraiser at the property and provide them a list of comps. I have communicated with appraisers on different occasions. On one occasion, it made a difference. On the others, it has not.
I mean, I'm sure that they would kind of, maybe some of them would have the attitude of like, don't tell me. how to
Some
get
of them
it
feel
done.
like you're intruding.
Yeah.
Some of them appreciate it.
I would say to you that, in my experience, if you got a VA appraisal or an FHA appraisal,
Yeah.
it is in your client's, if you're the listing agent, it is in your client's and yours best interest to be very kind,
Yes,
very courteous,
yes,
and very accessible to two groups of people. One is the appraisers, first and foremost. Second one is a termite inspector. Simply because if, for whatever reason, there's one thing that if it shows up in a termite report,
mhm,
it's defined as condition conducive
Yes.
to weed destroying insects, code for termites. And that could be something as insignificant as a branch from a
That's
shrub
right.
touching the structure.
the mulch too high on the slab.
Yes.
That commits your seller to automatically almost to a $500 or $600 termite application prior to closing.
Yeah,
Today I got a phone call, actually, I was driving back from the Oak Ridge office from an appraiser on a property in Spring that I have listed for $180,000 in a VA loan. So I'm making the effort to personally go out there, to open the door, to provide him with some comps,
yep,
to assist him with the process of facilitating my knowledge of current market activity.
mhm,
And if I had enough time and the oven in the house was working, I would probably bake him some warm cookies.
I've taken pastries before.
two appraisers.
With the hops, it's sugar.
Literally, you've taken it to another level.
You know, you don't wanna be insulting and suck up too much, but you know when you're being cooperative,
Yes,
and the easier that you make the job for those people.
That's right.
And I will suddenly hang around for a few minutes and,
yes,
not try to derail his effort or make him feel like I'm bribing him, but at least, have, good positive conversation about, the appraisers typically know nothing about the property, the sellers, or even the buyers that they're doing the appraisal for. Sometimes, including some light conversation, like I'm planning on doing this afternoon, as to how excited this veteran is to
yes,
have found such a deal in this
Yes.
community where the house across the street is just listed for $220,000 and happens to be a handy person, and he is going, at the end of the day, for a few $1,000s, gonna have a house that is gonna exceed by $50,000 market value.
great,
Just that conversation, I'm not asking him to raise a fuss, I'm just saying
Right.
that I have a great deal that, your client, well, not your client, the lender's client is gonna be getting. So he's gonna be leaving with that in his mind,
Yes.
or her mind. And so sometimes what you say and how you present things, no different than what Frank was talking
Yes.
about dealing with other agents,
yes,
could influence. $10,000 differential on $175,000 transaction could be the difference between a buyer being able to afford it or a seller not being able to sell.
that's right,
In my case, it's a senior who has moved into a permanent home care, healthcare facility. And so I know that every $1,000 to her could be the difference of another 3 months of, activities for her. So
Yes.
we're dealing with human beings all the way around,
Yeah.
not just our clients, but our co-op's clients and the people who make a living being associated with doing the
Yes.
ancillaries.
okay, great real-life example, thank you, Ro. Okay, so closing and beyond. So, at the closing table, well, here's some real-life stories I won't tell right now. When representing the seller, this is gonna be my new policy, okay, as a result of real-world stuff that's happened in the last 2 weeks. I am going to insist that the buyer and the seller close separately. okay? I'm in a couple nightmare scenarios. One of them may turn into a lawsuit because of what was said by the seller at the closing table, okay? Sellers can't help but talk about the house, especially if they bond with the buyers. And in doing so, they say things that create liability and lawsuits, okay? So here's another situation, another one I just learned about yesterday. This is the bonus here. The seller moved to California and thought what a great favor they were going to do for the buyers to leave all their repair history receipts in the kitchen drawer so they could see everything that had ever been done to the house and the whole history of that prior ownership. They'd had a plumbing issue, plumbing leak. The plumber came out and fixed it. But on the receipt, he noted that he identified some other plumbing issues that were going to require $8,000 to repair. The seller never had them repaired because it had never caused a problem. Well, guess what that seller's doing right now? Writing a check for $8,000. Okay? So, bonus, tell the sellers to take or destroy all repair receipts and repair records related to the home. They think they're being nice. All they're doing is causing troubles, potential troubles, okay? So if you're representing the buyer, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're representing the seller, keep them away from those buyers at all cost.
Yeah.
Don't let them be home when the buyers do their final walk, okay? They don't need to be touring the home with the buyers and teaching them this, that thing, and here's how you turn that off. Don't let them, keep them separate, okay? Nothing but bad things can come out of that.
And I don't let them keep plans either.
Plans,
A
blueprints,
custom house,
yes.
because those can come back. Because even though that's the approved certified plans, there can be mistakes on those plans.
That's right. It
They
wasn't
made
built to
in the
plan, was it?
multiplication of the numbers and everybody's wrong forever, and so I just had one, and then I'm like, nope, plans
Yeah.
are gone.
Janice?
Question on that. So I've sold quite a few homes with pools in them,
Yes.
and the buyers, I've represented both sides, but the buyers usually ask the sellers to help them or teach them to run the pool, so we should not do that.
I would not do that. They can hire a pool maintenance
Okay.
company to come in and do that, a pool repair company. No, keep them apart. Okay, so in summary, put some sugar with it. Have you heard that today? Okay? Be positive and professional at all times. That is your job. What is your job? To be positive and professional at all times. Carefully explain and justify each negotiating request. And when there is potential for misunderstanding, when tensions are high, when negotiations are complicated, conduct negotiations on the phone with a cooperating agent or in person with your own client. Okay? So you can put context and emotion, proper emotion behind all that. Okay? That's what I wanted to say today.
That's good.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, I'll take.
Oh, please,
Couple of
take the
minutes.
floor. Yes.
Well, I hope that you recognize, and I know that Frank's extremely modest, but the value that a class like this represents to each of us as individuals. You know, and you can take training to be prepared, but I mean, a training like this that is presented to you on the level, you know, with extremely valuable information that you can use on a daily basis. I hope that that you recognize that value. I sat through a lot of classes over the 15 years. I wanted to share with you that we are blessed to have Frank Gray here in our class on the weekly basis. The man is a master communicator. I may know a lot of the information that is conveyed here on the weekly basis, but I could never express it in the way that Frank can, and we really thank you.
Thank you.
For Another thing that I have to say is that Frank is also a practitioner. He's not just a trainer. What you see here is the result as he has expressed. Trials and tribulations that we all experience. But we have the added benefit is taking the time to compile and improve a list of standard operating procedures for himself and for his team and we all can benefit from that. I think that there is a huge difference between conveying experience and articulating drama. In real estate, frequently, that's what we see in training. Let me tell you my story. And so we all have a story to tell, and usually is who has the scariest story. You know? From today's class, I derived some benefits as well. You can never be hurt by being reminded of being positive and being professional. What Frank said several times during his presentation is that we frequently set the tone for how transactions are going to work out. And sometimes we have, he said this as well, we have to rise above, the negativity and attitudes of less than professional agents that we may happen to be working with. I think something that I have found recently in the past 3 years or so is that if you have a client that you're representing, whether it is a seller or a buyer, and you can have some verbiage explained or written to pass on to the other side to convey the humanity of this transaction that they're about to embark, usually that helps greatly to set the tone. I'm sure you will not be surprised when I tell you that frequently agents that you may encounter, even from big brands or sometimes small companies that you never heard of, make you wonder if they're speaking for their clients or they're just standing on a little soapbox to tell you how it's going to be. Be patient, be professional, be positive, and at the end of the day, the art of negotiation is achieving the ultimate goal of protecting your clients and getting to a closing. You know the numbers. You know when people are being unreasonable. Do not try to negotiate everything up front. Hold back some things to have always something to negotiate for. Don't throw the toolbox on the table and say, okay, this is everything you need to close. Because guaranteed, the other side is going to find some other tool that they need. And they're going to come back and ask you when your clients probably put everything they had on there. So advise your clients to ask for the absolute necessary, and if there is an opportunity to ask for more, save it from when the other side approaches you with another request. And there are some people that just never stop asking. They start asking before you get an offer, okay? They ask during the negotiation process, and oh, by the way, when you're all done, they will ask you for a few more things. Be smart, be positive, be professional, and stay plugged in. frankgray is our answer.
Okay, so I promised you I would tell you a real life example. This will take 60 seconds, so stay with me. How this is working for me right now. I've got a deal under contract set to close next week. It took us 6 weeks to negotiate the contract, okay? It was horrible. It involves my own mother, okay? And we were so far apart. I thought the deal was dead 16 times, and she would resurrect it. I'd say, Mom, I'm not going back again. I am not going back with that offer. They've already said, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, after 6 weeks, believe it or not, we actually got the deal done. But there were so many opportunities for me and this listing agent to get crossways, right? So frustrating. And yet we both kept it very, very positive. We had another amendment to the contract last night. I drafted it, and I made a mistake. I shorted my buyers, my mother, $750 from an agreement we had already had in place, and I changed the amendment and took it away. Got signatures from everybody, including the seller, okay? And then last night the title company brought it to my attention that I had made a mistake, and I went, oops. I went back to the listing agent. I carefully explained what happened. I sent her a corrected amendment, which she had just had her seller sign, the one I'd sent a couple hours before. And I carefully explained, this doesn't change the bottom line. You know, this is what we had previously agreed to. I just made a math mistake. I said, so sorry for the miscue. I took responsibility for it. And I asked her to get me an executed copy back. She didn't have to, right? Everybody was signed. At this point, it's completely the goodwill of the parties involved. And without hesitation, she answered back and said, no problem, I'll get you the executed copy in the morning, okay? So that doesn't happen, you know, when you're throwing vinegar on the transaction the whole time. So just good things happen to you and for your clients. Ultimately, that's what it's for. If you can just maintain this positive atmosphere the whole time. Okay, thanks, guys.
So we should always keep Mary Poppins in mind.
Yes, keep Mary Poppins. Little spoonful of sugar.